Hi, kids. Hi, Miles. Hi, Kel. Hi, Ebba. Hi, April. So, this is a very good story. It's called Heidi. And this is a story about a little girl. There she is, and her name's Heidi. And she lived up in the mountains in a country called Germany. She lived in the mountains like April. You live in the mountains. The mountains are beautiful, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So, anyway, this is a good story about this little girl named Heidi. All right? Look at the pretty picture. It says, on top of a mountain in the Swiss Alps, Heidi lived with her grandfather. So she lived with her grandpa. Their home was a hut overlooking the valley, and behind it stood three old fir trees. Heidi loved to hear the wind rushing and roaring in their long, thick branches. So here she is, up on the mountain with her grandpa, and there's their house right up there. See their house? And the pretty trees? Heidi had a happy life. Every day in the summer, she went up in the mountain with Peter, her friend, who took care of the goats. She knew the names of all the flowers, and she was friends with all the goats that Peter took care of. See, there's her friend Peter, and he took care of those goats. And so she would like to go with him when they went up into the mountain so that the goats could eat their grass. And there were some pretty flowers, and she picked the pretty flowers up in the mountains. She had a very happy life. She enjoyed it. In the wintertime, Heidi stayed inside at home with grandfather, and she watched him make wooden spoons or hammer together chairs or tables. So here she is with her grandfather. When it was cold outside, her grandfather would make things out of wood, and she liked to watch him. He was a carpenter. It says, sometimes Peter struggled up the snowy mountain path to call for Heidi and took her down to visit his mother and his blind grandmother. So sometimes when it was cold, Peter came and got her, and they took a walk down the mountain to visit this old lady, and to visit Peter's mother and the grandmother. And the grandmother couldn't see. She was blind. So one day Heidi's aunt came to take her to school. So there's the aunt, and she came and took her away and took her to Frankfurt, far away. He took her to the city. Heidi soon made friends in Frankfurt. There was the good old doctor who came to see Heidi's cousin Clara, who never left without saying a kind word to Heidi. So this is a nice doctor who came to visit because Clara, here's a picture of Clara, that was Heidi's cousin, and she was sick. She was sick, and so the doctor would come see her at her house. And here's Clara's grandmother who taught Heidi to read. Yeah, there's this nice lady, and she taught Heidi how to read. It says, and of course there was Clara herself, pretty and sweet, but so pale and frail and unable to walk or stand. Heidi told her over and over again about grandfather and about Peter and about the merry goats and the great, beautiful fir trees. Oh, if only you could go there, Heidi would say. You would see, you would get better, and you would learn to walk if only we were at my home. So there's poor sick Clara, poor sick Clara, and there's poor sick Clara, and there's Clara's kind grandmother who taught her how to read. Poor Heidi, she became very, very homesick for the mountains and her grandfather. She says, here in Frankfurt, in the city, even from the golden steeple of the church which she visited one day, as far as her eyes reached, she could see only the gray stone houses of the city. Many weeks went by, and every day Heidi grew more pale and more homesick. She was getting very lonesome. She wanted to go back to the mountain. She wanted to go see her grandfather. Here she is. She's living in the city with lots and lots of houses, and she missed the beautiful mountains. So the kind old doctor who came to see Clara spoke to Clara's father. He said, Heidi has grown thin and pale with homesickness. You must send her home at once, or she's going to get sick. So the very next day, Heidi's bag was packed so she could go back to the mountains she loved. Heidi and Clara cried when they had to say goodbye to each other. But just wait, Heidi said. You will come to visit soon, and then you will see how beautiful it is, and you will get well and strong up in the mountains. So there she is saying goodbye to her friend Clara, because she's going to go back up to the mountains to be with her grandpa. And then it was not long before Heidi was running up the path she knew so well, up to her grandfather's hut, to his house. And before grandfather had seen her coming, she had thrown her arms around his neck. "Grandfather," she cried, "Grandfather, I am home and I will never leave you again." There she is. Gave her grandpa a big hug. She was so happy to be back. Heidi had to run out to see the goats and to hear the wind in the fir trees. She had to hurry down the mountain path to find Peter's grandmother, who wept with joy to find that Heidi could read to her now. So Heidi went back to visit the old grandma, remember that lived, Peter's grandma? And Heidi read her things. She read her stories because she learned how to read, and it made the old grandmother very happy. And every day, at least 6 times a day, she said to her grandfather, "Oh, we must bring Clara here. Here, Clara can get well and strong." It's always God that makes us all better. If he wants to make us better, he's the one that does it. But you know what? When you get outside and when you breathe that fresh air and when you walk and get exercise in the beautiful mountains or just wherever you are, by the beautiful ocean or in the beautiful countryside of Indiana, wherever you are, it's good. It's good to play outside. It makes you healthy. Yeah. And so she wanted her Clara to come away from the big city and to come and stay with them. Heidi had her way at last, and one day a little procession wound up the mountains. Clara was wrapped in blankets, and she was being carried up in a chair. Her father carried more warm blankets behind her. Here she comes up the mountain. Look, they put her on a chair, and they carried her up the mountain. And there's her father. So Clara's going to come and visit. "I am going to stay with you," Clara told Heidi. Her soft blue eyes were shining. "I am going to stay with you and Grandfather and Peter and the goats for 4 whole weeks. Then Father will come back for me." And Heidi could do nothing but jump for joy. Oh, look how happy Heidi is to have her friend Clara with her. She's so happy to have her in the mountains. Every day after that, Grandfather carried Clara up where Peter kept his goats. He put her down on the warm, sweet grass, and then Heidi would pick flowers for her friend or sit beside her to tell her the names of all the different goats. See, there's Clara sitting down in the nice, pretty grass, enjoying the goats and the flowers, and there's Heidi picking flowers, and there's Peter taking care of his goats. Every day, Clara drank big bowls full of sweet goat milk. "Ooh, that's good," she sighed. "And I'm so hungry at home. I never like to eat." So since she was outside, she was just hungrier, and she ate healthy and good stuff. She ate good food. And Grandfather said, "It is the healthy mountain air." So here she is eating lots of good food. Clara and Heidi and Grandpa's feeding them some good, healthy food. And they're hungry because they've been outside all day. And by the time Clara's dad came to get his little girl, instead of a pale, sick little girl, he found a tall, smiling, rosy-cheeked Clara who came walking to her father on Heidi's arm. Oh, look, she got better. Her father ran up and took his girl in his arms. He swung her around. "How is this possible?" he cried. "How is this possible?" And Heidi kept dancing around them both, saying, "I knew the mountains could help make you better. I knew it would help make you better. Thank God you are all better." And she was so happy. And that is the wonderful story about Heidi. I hope you liked it. All right, love you. Good night or goodbye. Bye-bye.